make a rough puff or a flaky pastry, you just need 200 grams of plain flour. Strong plain flour is even better because it's got more gluten that will develop, which helps with the stretch and the layering. But that can be placed into a bowl. Put a pinch of salt into there. And then you need to have 3/4 of the amount of fat that you have of flour. So you have 150 grams of fat. Now I've made mine up of half lard, half butter, so 75 grams of each. I'm going to put both of those onto a plate and I'm going to chop them up so that roughly half is going to go directly into the mixture, directly into the flour to start with, and get rubbed in as if you were making a short crust pastry. Remember, the lard is used because it gives a really good texture. It's also got a different melting point to butter, so it helps with creating those layers and the lamination that you want. So as you can see, I've just done this roughly half of the amount of fat going into the flour to start with. Just cut that in with your knife and then rub it in with your fingertips like you would short crust pastry. Across the tops of the fingertips, because they're the coolest part, just rubbing that in, and then you're going to add a tiny bit of water to this to bring it into a dough. Now you don't want your rough puff pastry dough to be completely mixed as well as the breadcrumbs you would expect in a short crust pastry. You actually want some lumps to still be there. I'm going to add some really cold water and bring it together with the table knife so it's like a cutting into it action. When you feel like there's enough moisture in there, just get your hand in there and bring it together as a dough. We're going to put that dough in the fridge and let that rest for about 10 minutes before we continue on to the next stage. whilst that's resting in the fridge, we're going to cut up these little bits of fat into little pats, so little pieces that we can put rolled and folded into our dough. As well to harden up a little bit whilst we're waiting. So once your pastry dough has rested and your pats of fat have rested in the fridge to allow them to harden up slightly, you can then get this out and put it onto a lightly floured surface. Remember, it's important to also flour your rolling pin. What we want to do now is roll and fold. So we're going to be just rolling and folding the pastry into a rectangle shape. So we'll just roll it out roughly at the moment. Divide it into thirds roughly, and then place some pats of fat across the surface onto two of the surfaces. Then you're going to fold at those thirds, push down the sides and turn it around and roll it out again. Now roll it gently. You might want to just push it down slightly first with your rolling pin, because we don't want the fat to spread and come up through the layers, otherwise it's going to just spill directly out of the pastry before you've even got a chance for it to create the layers. So once you've done that, again, fold, press down the sides, turn, make sure there's plenty of dusting of your flour, and this time I'm doing it without any pats of butter or lard. I'm just going to roll it out gently. So we do one with, one without, with layers of with the fat and without the fat, just gently scoring and placing the fat onto the surface and creating those layers. So I'm going to do this until it's all incorporated into the pastry, and every so often it's a good idea to put it into the fridge. If it seems like it's getting a bit soft, put it in the fridge until you've allowed it to harden up again, and then continue. So fold, fold, press down the sides, turn it, make sure there's plenty of flour, and then gently roll it out again. For the final roll, you definitely want to rest your pastry in the fridge for at least 10 to 20 minutes before you use it to make anything. Place that in the fridge. At this stage I could also freeze this pastry if I wanted to. I'd wrap it in cling film and I could freeze it and then defrost it and use it at a later date. But I'm going to get this out in 20 minutes and see how it is. Having now rested my pastry in the fridge for 20 minutes, I'm now going to place this onto my work surface. I have preheated the oven at 220 degrees Celsius, which is the equivalent to gas mark 7. I'm now going to roll this out to make it into a product. Now I could make it into sausage rolls, I could make it into cheese and onion jalousie. There's all kinds of things. I could use it as a pie topping. But I'm actually going to use it to make some chocolate twists because I've got some Nutella here, quite fancy making those. You could also use it to make apple or jam turnovers. Make sure you've got plenty of flour down on your surface. And sprinkled over the top as well. So I'm now going to spread some Nutella over the top. Just making this bit up because I saw I had Nutella in the cupboard. I thought, oh, let's make something with that. So you might want to actually get your Nutella warmed up a little bit in the microwave, not in the pot that it's in because that might have some residual kind of wrapping on it, which is not good to go in the microwave, but you might want to put some of it into a bowl and soften it slightly before you try putting it across the pastry. It'll be easier to roll it out. Spread it I've also got some flaked almonds here, so I think I might put some flaked almonds on. Just scatter them across. Now I'm going to use a sharp knife to cut this into strips. And then with each of the strips I'm going to join them at the top. Twist them around each other. Place those on a baking tray and bake those in the oven for around about 20 minutes. I've actually decided to make them into a range of different shapes. I'm just going to also just splash some water, just literally a sprinkle of water on the top, because it is the steam from the liquid that will force the layers to rise. And a high temperature is also needed to burst the starch granules and quickly so that the large proportion of fat can be absorbed before the pastry sets. If the oven's too cool, the fat will run out and destroy the flaky layers. So here we are, the finished pastries, and as you can see, the lamination layers here, on this one here, you can see